Welcome, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and the beautiful colors that we find in not only thunder eggs, but the agates. Um, they are truly nature's wonders. I have some here that I'll be showing through the camera. And with a little light, I got a light behind the computer. And after the presentation, I'll be showing those. So if you are all ready to start, the mystery of agate formation. This presentation describes a new theory about geode agate development. It merges concepts from various published theories and communicates the information in a non-technical manner. Agate is a semi-precious variety of quartz. Quartz is the second most abundant mineral on the Earth's crust after feldspar. It's made up of a continuous framework of silicon dioxide molecules, silica. Silica comes in many forms. It can be suspended in water, precipitated out of solution to form non-crystalline gels, or solids such as opals, or grown into crystalline quartz. And that's what we're looking at. That's what we're going to be looking at tonight. You can see all the many different colors. If you can see the cursor right here, we'll be talking about that later. This may be an entry point for all this silica gel to come in, solidify, dry out. More come in, solidify, dry out. And this one up here might be another entrance point. And we'll be discussing that in detail because that's part of this new theory. This came about that I went to a show when I was flying in Frankfurt, Germany, and they were still talking the gel theory and all that, gel seeping in. And then that's the same thing in Frankfurt, but in Brussels, Belgium, when I went to one there. In Cedarburg, Wisconsin in 2016, between those two is when all this came up about this new theory, and it seems to make perfect sense. The crystalline varieties of quartz can be subdivided into two groups. Macrocrystalline includes quartz with crystals that you can see with the unaided eye. When most people think of quartz, they envision six-sided crystals with six-sided pyramids at their ends. Can everybody see this okay? That's crystalline quartz, macrocrystalline. You can actually see the whole crystal with your naked eye. You don't need a microscope.
We can't see your picture. We just see your name.
Oh, you can do what now?
We just see your name. We can't see your picture.
Uh-oh. Camera go out?
Yeah, but that's okay. You can show them at the end when you stop sharing your screen.
Okay. Well, there's a whole lot to show. Macrocrystalline has crystals that require a powerful microscope to be seen. The macrocrystalline varieties are further divided into two groups, granular, and by granular, when you're looking at it under microscope, if you can imagine a jar full of BBs, that would be granular, and fibrous that are distinguished by the size and the shape of the microcrystals. Any kind of feed or anything like that, long fibrous crystals is all they're talking about here. So you've got one that looks like BBs, and the other one looks, if you broke a pencil, let's say, into a bunch of small pieces, all those little lengths of pencils would be a microcrystal, would be the fibrous type. Agates naturally developed when the empty pockets or veins inside of a host rock filled in molecule by molecule and layer by layer with chalcedony microcrystals, which self-organize to form concentric bands or other patterns. Agates developed in igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks have been discovered on every continent. They have been studied for almost 250 years, but despite considerable research, most people agree the agate formation process is still not completely understood. This is because no one has documented agate formation in real time, nor have agates been successfully replicated in the laboratory. It's amazing that we cannot make agate, but we can manufacture diamonds, rubies, sapphires, and emeralds. The scientists and the geologists tell us that the agate that we find now have been forming for 355 million years, up to about 35 million years ago. They're still forming today, but nobody's been able to do that real time when you're speaking millions of years. There are two main genesis theories. One suggests that agates formed from the inflow of mineral-rich solutions into empty vesicle pockets. The second is the silica gel theory, which suggests that agate formed from silica gel clumps in molten lava or gelatinous oozes that seep through the pores of the host rock and accumulated in pockets. And I have one photograph in here that will support that theory right there. The new hybrid theory that has in part been influenced by the article, The Formation of Agate Structures, Model for Silica Transport, Agate Layer Accretion, and Flow Patterns and Flow Regimes and Filtration Channels, which described a theory by German geologist Wagler. This new theory suggests that there is a critical process during the agate formation that involves the inflow of silica-rich fluids into the vesicle pocket from surrounding host rock, the development of a temporary gelatinous membrane when silica molecules attach, the outflow of silica-depleted water back into the host rock, and the hardening of the gelatinous layer into chalcedony microcrystals. A large percentage of the world's agates formed in vesicle pockets inside volcanic basalt or andesite rock. These igneous rocks were usually poor in silica, so there had to be another source of mineral in order for the agates to develop. There may have been different sources of silica depending on the geological environment and conditions. Some of the possible sources include silica-rich rocks, such as volcanic ash, bentonite, rhyolitic tuff, and sandstone, organic remains, mineral-rich groundwater, and hydrothermal fluids. If the silica source was a rock, a chemical weathering, vitrification process took place when the carbon dioxide mixed with water to form carbonic acid, which then chemically decomposed the source rock to free up silica and other minerals. Once silica was leached from its source, it usually took the form of silicic acid, which is comprised of silicon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Fluids within the host rock pores became saturated with silica, but since this form of silica is inherently unstable, it rapidly condensed and eliminated water to form silica polymer colloids. These at first were small particles floating in fluid within the pores of the host rock. Over time, the colloids joined together. This occurred because silica molecules love their friends. You can think of the polymerization process as a lot of silica molecules holding hands to form longer chains of silica molecules. This is an important step for agate genesis because it appears that under normal agate forming conditions, quartz does not crystallize directly from single molecules of silicon dioxide suspended in solution. Once the pores in the host rock became supersaturated with silica colloids, the next step for the agate formation process was for silica to be transported through the host rock to the vesicle pockets. When the host lava first began to cool and solidify into rock, contraction took place throughout the matrix, producing a network of cracks called fractures. At the top of the lava flow, there tended to be more cooling-induced fractures, as well as more vesicle pockets, since the gas bubbles that originally formed the pockets rose to the top. Over time, these fractures served as conduits and facilitated the movement of fluids throughout the host rock. Even though all the pores and vesicle pockets in the host rock filled with water, the silica concentrations varied. Silica saturation in the smaller pores of the host rock attained a higher concentration, while in the larger vesicle pocket was significantly lower. Consequently, a difference in concentration level or gradient developed between the intergranular pore solutions and the fluids within the vesicle pockets. This gradient was the driving force that caused the higher saturation solution to move into the vesicle pockets, either through capillary fractures or directly through the pores of the outer husk and chalcedony bands of the vesicle. Proof of this porosity is demonstrated by the fact that agates can be artificially colored by injecting dyes through the semi-permeable agate layers. In both cases, the driving force is fluid movement was needed to equalize the silica concentration. I have some slices of dyed agate, but apparently I'll have to minimize to get the camera back. So we'll show you that in a little bit. In essence, the silica-rich water came in. Once the pressure equalized, the water pressure equalized on both sides. Remember, this happens deep in the ground with a lot of heat and pressure. So the heat facilitates in evaporating or pushing the water back out, leaving behind the band or the silica, and it keeps forming and forming, coming in, evaporating, coming in, evaporating, and depending on what silica compound was introduced determines what color the bands were. As such, we can look at the top up here on the right-hand side and see this may be an entrance point right here for the fluid to come in. The article will be discussing more about that in just a minute. We'll go through some beautiful colors. Here's another one where you can see the channel where the silica compound was introduced, and obviously There were many different silica compounds that came in over possibly millions of years to fill these voids with different colored silica gels. The tube shape that we just witnessed, connective channels that are often seen in agate slabs, are central to understanding the agate formation. Those who believe that these connective structures are exit channels suggest that on occasion agates had to relieve pressure via an explosive release. We can understand why a lot of researchers have labeled this tubes of escape, since the bands next to the tube-like channel grow thinner toward the outside of the agate. It appears that this thinning is in response to material in the center of the agate pushing out. A closer examination of these connective channels, however, indicates that they may instead be inflow channels. If the connective tubes were formed by high pressure release, as has been suggested by silica gel enthusiasts, then it would be expected that the microscopic silica fibers formed in the individual agate bands lining the channel would have been deformed as a result of the pressure release towards the outside of the channel. In his research, Wagler discovered this is not the case. He used a scanning electron microscope photos to show that the silica fibers and the connective channels maintain the normal perpendicular orientation relative to the agate band direction. And I've got some real good pictures of that and just coming up. More support for the premise that the channels are for inflow can be seen in agates that have crystals growing within the channels. If this were an outflow channel caused by a pressure release powerful enough to burst through the outer husk wall, there would not be random crystals without deformities that grew lazily in the middle of the channel. Instead, aggregate growths can sometimes be seen within the channel that grew in toward the center of the pocket. Thus, the material aggregate was effective as an obstacle, disturbing the inflow current, and accordingly, it modified the spatial distribution of the bands that formed near the channel opening. Although it is true that no two agates or geodes are alike, there are controlling mechanisms that are universal in the formation of all agate banding. Researchers who have studied agates from all over the world have discovered similarities in texture, microstructure, and rhythmic zoning. The agate bands developed as the fingers of fibrous silica microcrystals progressively grew from the outside of the cavity towards the inside. The first step was the formation of a semi-porous silica membrane surrounding the cavity. As the amount and size of the polymer change floating in solution inside the agate pocket increased, the colloids started to adhere to the inside of the wall cavity. When the colloids attached and found their friends, they formed a thin gelatinous membrane. As the layer increased in thickness, the concentration of free silica colloids in the pocket's fluid decreased. At the rate of attachment to the vesicle wall slowed down, finally coming to a temporary halt. Because the process stopped, there was never complete closure of the solidified texture in the membrane layer, and as a residual porosity remained. The gel layer took up space, causing some of the silica pore fluid to then be diffused back out of the pocket through the pores. The amount of outflow of silica pore fluid equaled the amount of inflow of silica-rich fluid. This is called continuity condition. Basically, that means there had to be an outflow to equal the amount of inflow, since water cannot be compressed. Not only after each membrane developed, the gel in the membrane formed calcium microcrystals to harden the layer. The driving force exerted by the concentration gradient was maintained as long as chemical weathering in the surrounding rock continued to supply silica. Look at all those bands. Eons after eons, possibly million years of silica gel going in there, forming their bands. The water dissipating, leaving the gel to harden, and then it starts all over again. Another comes in, forms a band. Here's one here, and this is the entrance over here where it comes in. All those beautiful colors. It's amazing. The entrance channel was down here and finally closed up. This is probably another one over here because you'll hear them talk about onion shape where it came in. Was a restriction right here after all this came in and solidified, but the channel was still open and caused a restriction right here, but it was still left open to the point to where all this could get in there. And then it has a crystal cavity right here. Over here was the entrance. And over here was the entrance. There's your onion shaped again. And this was the entrance causing all of these bands. This here is most likely, this is the way the picture was posted. And I believe it to probably be upside down, or something caused it to be pushed up like that. Or maybe it was actually laying on its side and distributed that way because of this big crystal cavity over here. You usually find at the bottom down here is where the it was sitting, because you remember when it said that the bubbles rise to the top, and that's what happened here. Because usually they go and be fairly flat sometimes on the bottom. It appears that silica colloids were not alone. Researchers determined that other minerals contributed to the formation of bands. In some cases, the mineral impurities, such as iron, simply tried to get in the way. If these impurities had the same electrical charge as the silica colloids, they were pushed to the inside and away from the leading edge of the gel membrane formation, settling in troughs and at the tips of the crystal fibers as the gel membrane solidified. Over time, these impurities built up and somewhat blocked silica colloids from getting to the active membrane surface. When enough of the impurities had built up, they formed their own bands or spheroid deposits. After the impurity concentration was reduced because of the free impurity molecules precipitated and attached, silica growth recommenced. Other trace elements that entered into the agate pocket actually helped the silica to form chalcedony bands. It is thought that aluminum was usually the catalyst, but potassium, sodium, zinc, barium, calcium ions may have also been responsible. An internal cycle was created in which diffusion or infiltration of the mineral-rich fluids into the agate pocket, development of a temporary silica gel membrane that hardened into an individual agate band, and outflow of the mineral pore fluids from the pocket repeat and repeat and repeat. Here's one where the liquid either dripped from the top, because the bottom, it would appear the flat bottom is what formed the chamber, the bottom of the chamber. And it can act like anything else, stalactites or stalagmites, because you can see some orbicular formations at the top, being the round formations at the top. So this apparently dripped down over eons. You can have a geode in any type of pocket. Here you have quartz crystals that settled in, at one time, a complete shell, and the top has since been busted up, broken off, leaving what you find here. Ancient sponges, because they were long tubular, the base of the sponges, once that those could contribute to be a host once it and who knows what's going on with this guy. I think this guy moved through the soil quite a bit, and these things do move through the soil due to upheavals, earthquakes, mud flows close to volcanoes can carry these things away, lay them in an entirely different situation, and more silica comes in, but at a different angle. And this is what this is how you get this. They come in pastels. This one I know is from Germany, but you can have pastel colors. All depends on what the silica was mixed with, what mineral, and the strength of it. Mighty pretty. I think this one did some traveling. You can see on the left-hand side that the channel was probably that way, and one of the very last things that went in to the center of it was this right here through this channel, and then this material backflowed in. These seeped in through the pores from the outside. It's formation with crystal cavity inside. This one was cut where the orbicular features you see. Remember the one we had looked like the tube formation? Well, this is the same thing. The tube ran across this particular geode, and it was cut in half in such a way that it revealed half of the tube. This one spent quite a bit
I
of
can
time.
do it Thursday if I have to.
Yeah, this one spent quite a bit of time building up the bottom that you can see there, and then in different layers, because you can almost see the banding in there. So that's one layer of silica gel came in, hardened, the water evaporated. Another came in. This again is over eons. And then the last thing to happen here was the iron oxide or hematite. The iron oxide silica gel came in and caused the red jasper or iron oxide. You can see this one had two chambers. One of them formed, the top, and then the bottom one, you can see the banding at the bottom. That's layer after layer of silicon gel coming in a water mixture. Water evaporated because these things were hot, deep in the soil and hot. I have seen one of these over in Germany. It was almost just like this, but that whole center pocket was formed just like this. But the last thing to happen was water clear agate formed, water clear quartz formed, and the whole thing polished up real nice. But you could see right into it like this, even though the cavity was full of clear, water clear quartz. Some more banding from layer after layer after layer coming in, water evaporating, and then it hardened. More water came in, silica rich water. This is from Montana. This is called an iris agate, and it's just the way the certain molecules align. Some of them do not have the coloration in there, but you can see like cloud formations inside. And then some of them have this actual iris, and it's just the way the molecules aligned when it went in. Isn't that beautiful? Here's another example. Again, this is also from Montana. It's called iris agate. Not all agates around, and this one here is full of chalcedony and the deserts of Morocco. Remember at the beginning, they talked about the silica gel ooze. So it was nearly hardened already, toothpaste-like, if you will, and it oozed into the hole, and that's actually what formed this. Remember, we also said plant material or anything like that can come in. That's where a lot of them pick up the coloration and all that. The blue agate, the orange, and then the green. You'll have dendrites, just like little trees in there. They're dendrites. Some are manganese if they're black, but it looks like little trees inside there when they leach in. How big do they get? Well, here's one example. This is a Brazilian agate. When they get this big, they're called cathedrals. This is all amethyst. Nice, dark purple amethyst. It's large, 6 pointed and sided amethyst quartz crystals. And here's another. The crystals aren't near as big on this, but this is also amethyst. Perhaps we will never completely solve the mystery of agate formation. More than 3,000 named varieties of agate developed over 3 billion years of Earth's history in all types of geological environments. Perhaps all genesis theories explain how at least some of the agates that we now find were formed. It makes sense to examine all the facts and combine aspects of the different theories to explain the mystery of agate genesis. This is a coconut. These come from the Chihuahuan Desert of Mexico. This is called a coconut agate. Most all are hollow inside. The white ash you see on there, and when I get the camera back, I'll show you some that I have here. That white powdery substance you see on the surface is ancient volcanic ash. This is actually a volcanic bubble that the crystals formed inside, and we're going to watch how they crack it. I'm a member of the Central Texas Gem and Mineral Show, and we do this when we have our rock show. This year it'll be at the Expo Center, but every year in April we have it except last year because of the COVID. This last April we didn't have it because of the COVID, but this is what we do with the same type of tool. This is actually a cast iron pipe cutter. You can see the wheels on there. The wheels are sharp and they form a good circle around the geode, and they splits very easily. So let's look at this. Nice amethyst geode. You can see the white around there is quartz. And then the quartz continues to grow into amethyst. A little bit about thunder eggs. It's a picture of a thunder egg. You notice how different it looks inside. This one you can see the 4 points and actually the entrance channel for some of the fluids to come in. Unrelated to weather and not affiliated with chickens, thunder eggs are an interesting problem. There is some confusion about geodes and thunder eggs. They are not the same things. A thunder egg is a special kind of oval to egg-shaped modular mass of rhyolitic material that occurs in perlite or decomposed perlite beds and in the glassy portions of welded tuffs. Perlite is a hydrated silica-rich volcanic glass. A welded tuff is a rock that forms when volcanic ash remains hot enough for glass shards, almost melt together. The nodules are approximately spherical in shape and have an exterior shell of rhyolite that is more solidified than the host rock. The term thunder egg refers to this special type of nodular formation, including its interior. Thunder eggs may be hollow, a geodal thunder egg, or filled with agate, jasper, opal, and other materials. 4 different types of thunder egg interiors have been identified, which probably represent different degrees of temperature and pressure in the original formation, as well as differences in the original magma composition. One produces a single lens cavity, another produces a triangular cavity, the third a box-shaped cavity, and the fourth the classic star-shaped cavity. Practically every thunder egg producing site yields its own uniquely structured and patterned features. In the field, a thin zone of porous material surrounds the thunder eggs. It is presumably derived from low temperature alteration of the host rhyolite that produces a clay and or zeolite material that is considerably denser and more weather resistant than the host rock. The geometric form of a filled cavity that will display a 5-pointed star in cross-section represents an interesting problem. Volcanic activity sometimes produced a rhyolitic lava flow and sometimes a glassy ash that fell in hot plastic condition, permitting its welding to a nearby homogeneous material resembling lava. In both cases, local centers of crystallization were set up around which masses of intergrown crystallite and feldspar were formed. The formation of these minerals released gases originally in solution in the glass. A crystallization proceeded as more and more gas collected. This gradual collection of gases exerted a pressure which, combined with the cooling shrinkage of the enclosed material, forced the walls of the cavity outward. Rhyolitic lavas and portions of ash falls destined to become welded tuffs are highly viscous, so expansion by rupture or tearing required much less energy, and therefore rupture occurred along symmetrically arranged planes. Here's the classic 5-star, and you can see where it fractured at the point of all 5 stars is how stuff got in there. So as the gases expanded, it cracked, and the fluids, the silica fluids were able to come in. These are the same composition as geodes. This is agate. It's just a different way of it getting inside of a host rock. So that's the classic star shape of a thunder egg. Here's the box shape. And they can be anything in here, just like in a geode. But you can see even the matrix out here is different than what it is on a geode. Another box. Almost looks like a seashore scene, I think. See where the silica came in? The water evaporated, left the silica material there, and started making bands. This had a lot coming in, making bands, the water evaporating because of heat and pressure. Time after time after time, leaving these bands in there. It's another 5-pointed. This one has agate inside, banded agate. It has quartz crystal chamber. The little feathery stuff down there that you see is magnesium dendrite, and they seep in and just start spreading out until they're finally stopped and solidify themselves. Outside, you have bitoroidal agate, that meaning round. The bitoroidal agate formed on the outside. There's the references that again, this is being taped, so you'll have access to this. And if you have any questions, that's who we are. I'm the president of the Central Texas Gem and Mineral Society located here in Abilene, Texas. There's my phone number if you have any questions about the club or any of this, any part of this program.
Are you ready for questions?
Yeah, hold on just a second. Let me get my camera back. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, I can't see anybody else, but that's what I was going to show. Yeah, well, go ahead and ask your question, please.
Well, this is Herb Hearn, Walt. Very interesting presentation. My question is, how are these discovered? They're embedded in rock, I guess. Are they embedded in all kinds of host rocks from granite
Yes.
to?
Yes, anywhere where there's volcanic activity, which obviously is all over the world. Here's one from West Texas. Let me turn on my little light here.
Well, do you find them free standing on the ground, or do you have to extract them from the host rock?
Yeah, this one here. Can you see my camera?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. This one is from the Woodward Ranch. This was found on the surface, tumbled down off one of those mountains out there, on one of those hills. You know, you see that okay, all the crystals inside? And
yes.
This is typical. It's kind of typical of a Texas agate, but that's what that looks like. The coconut that they showed when it was being cracked open, those are mined out of the Chihuahuan Desert, deep mining pits. You dig pits. There's a Baker mine that just opened up about 10 years ago. Guys got a mining lease. They opened it up and they started digging down there, and they found some geodes down there. 5 miles away was an extinct volcano, and they found like a pit, for lack of a better term, that was just full of these geodes, and it was 5 miles away. And the suspicion was that as the volcano weathered and rained, of course, you know, 14, 50, 100,000 years ago, it rained a whole lot more than it does now. Those things got in a mud flow and ended up in this pit, but you still had to dig for them. It wasn't a volcanic flow, but it was a mud flow because they washed out of the volcanic in situ.
How are they identified if they're part of the host rock? And then, you know,
You know, as far as
how they do-
coloration, as far as coloration and all that.
Well, the surface of them appear to be much like the host rock. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So,
What would you think about this? Just a
right,
little rock, right?
right.
Yeah.
How does one know that it's an agate inside that rather than just a solid rock?
You don't. Not all. I've got one in my truck. It's a mud ball, but it's a banded mud ball from sandstone, but it's round.
Right?
You don't know till you break it open. Yeah.
Now, yeah, you have to cut it open, I guess,
Yes, sir.
right? With some
Yeah.
kind of
Or
stone.
do a hollow one like we do that. If you have a solid geode, these are better served cut. This is from Brazil. This is a solid agate from Brazil.
Well, those large
Yeah, they get very-
ones that you
yeah, they get
showed,
very big. Yeah.
that would be quite an excavation project, I guess,
Oh, yes.
to bring them out intact.
Have any of you ever heard of the Crystal Cave down in Mexico? That goes 40, 50, 60-foot long quartz crystals. They were tunneling a mine. They were tunneling and broke into this huge cavity. And they have determined that that is in fact a geode and a gigantic geode. And these huge 30, 40, 50-foot long crystal quartz grew in that hollow.
Hmm.
And the whole cave itself is full of crystal quartz. It's just lined with it.
What was the term you used at the beginning? A vesicle cavity
Vesicle,
or
it's just a pocket. Yeah.
vesicle?
Pocket. A hollow pocket. Yeah. Like a vessel.
Okay.
Walt,
Yeah.
this would be a good time for this question. Linda asked, can you tell what a geode looks like before cutting into it?
No. One
Looks
thing
like
you
the
may
rock.
maybe one thing you may be able to do, like here's the one I was going to show you. If this light's, let me turn this off and see if it's any better. It was suggested that I try a different light. Does that look any better?
Much better.
Okay. This is a coconut geode. Depending on its weight, you can pretty much tell if it has a lot of agate in it. If it's very light, it's going to have a large pocket in it. And they come in many different sizes and up to huge. So if you take one of those and you open it up like we saw on the film, that's what you have inside. But you don't know what color or anything until you break it open.
How do
When
you
you-
know which way to cut it?
You don't. You just take your chances. I myself prefer, I have one on the shelf over here. I myself prefer to break these coconut ones with with that tool that you saw. I prefer to do that instead of cutting them because I had one, I was going to cut it on a saw and and I didn't do it. And I went ahead and broke it with the chain tool, and it had calcite blades in it. The whole inside was calcite blades and they were intermixed. I had to be careful when I separated the two so that I wouldn't break any of those blades off. Had I have cut that, I'd have cut right through the blades and ruined it basically, but you don't know. The solid ones, yeah, cut them. Whenever you cut them, what a lot of people do, it's called a slice or a slab. It's part of a geode. You cut the solid geode in half, and then you can put a clamp on the flat end, put it in the saw and start slicing it. And that's what you end up with. Now with this, you can take and cut whatever you want out of it to make cabochons, jewelry, or whatever is what people do with them.
I see.
Any questions about that? But now
How do
you
you, how do
have
you,
no idea.
how do you extract them from the host rock?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just have to chisel them out once you find one.
I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. And on some of the cliffs around
That'd
here
be-
where they made a road cut, sometimes after weathering and everything, there was some down here on 277. You found little round things sticking, just barely showing, but you can go in there and chip that out with a rock hammer because it's mostly, it's not hard rock, but sedimentary. So it's not hard. And you can take that out of that matrix, out of that type of soil. The rest of them you can just dig up. People use bulldozers and then put them, dump them on a screen to get rid of the dirt, and there you're left with the geode, a round rock.
You probably don't find too many of them extracted from granite, I guess, because of the hardness of the
No,
host.
what you do though, schist is one of the oldest, well, it is the oldest rock on earth, is schist. And what you find in schist are like garnets and stuff like that. Yeah. But not much of granite. Granite has the other materials in there, mica and everything else. Yeah. But you don't
Okay,
find,
Robin
find-
has
Can
a
I,
but you don't
Robin
find
has
it.
a quick question, and then we'll get to Ray. Okay.
Okay.
thank you.
Robin says, where in the world are main places to find geodes?
Just about anywhere. They about 7 or 8 years ago, they started finding agates in Kentucky, of all places. They have more yellow in them than anything else, but this is an example of an agate from Kentucky. Red, black, creams, yellow. And again, that's been sliced in a rock saw.
Go
Wow.
ahead, Ray, with your question.
I just want to ask, what conditions cause a geode to be solid versus have a hollow inside?
It just fills up.
You
The coconut
already.
geodes and the choyas, they do not fill up for what, and it's probably because of the drier climate, just like the ones from Morocco here. That's it. Once in a while, when you break these from Morocco, you get sand out of them.
Wow.
There are
No kidding.
there are geodes.
That's interesting.
They have geodes that have oil in them, you know, ancient oil. They have geodes that have water. I saw one in Ireland, up there by the Cliffs of Moher. There's a rock shop. It's called a level agate, but there's a tube, a hollow tube in there, and it has millions of year-old water in there, and it looks just like a level you'd use to build a house or to level things out. You can do like that, and you see that bubble go from one end of the tube to the other. It's called a water level
Wow.
agate. Yeah. And how they found that in there to polish it down to that point, I don't have a clue. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah. Talked about dyed. When I was down in Brazil, I used to spend a lot of time in Brazil running cargo back and forth to North America. Went out to one of the mines one time, and they have barrels all over the place. And they'll take geodes because people like dyed geodes, and they'll take them, they'll put them in those things and you remember it said it can seep through, even though this is like chalcedony banding and quartz, where you can see on this, it does not permeate the quartz. Not one bit of that stuff went into the quartz. But any of the chalcedony and all that stuff, it went into the chalcedony and through the skin of the, went through the skin, permeated the skin. They leave it in there for about a month. And then they cut it in half and then put it in a jig and then slice it. Here's a blue one. Again, you can see it does not permeate the quartz. The quartz is too hard. But all the chalcedony and that's in there formed from the silica, it permeates that and the outer husk.
What do they look like in the wild?
If you're digging in the ground in the Chihuahuan Desert of Mexico, it looks just like that. Now this one here's a little heavy, so I'm going to say there's more blue agate in this one. It will have a hollow in there, but it may not be very big.
Do they have any monetary value?
Oh gosh, yeah. This one here, even before you cut it or break it, running about $30. This one here. This one here, be about $40 or $100. I'm sorry, be about $100. And let's take a look on the inside of that one. Just barely pink, so that's amethyst.
Now, where in Texas can you find these?
Anywhere in West Texas, you go out to the Woodward Ranch down around Alpine. I have found going to Coleman, up on the hills to the east, I have found pieces of agate that had this type skin on it. had this type skin on it, but there's only a piece of it, and it had to be pretty big because it's about half the size of my hand, slightly curved, so it must have been a big one. I don't know if the Indians brought it in or what, but it had deep purple amethyst crystals on it. But it was like maybe not even a quarter of a piece. So it had to be pretty good size.
Do they ever x-ray them before they cut them?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay,
mentioned-
Herb, you had a question.
Yeah, you mentioned the Chihuahuan Desert, which is in Texas. That's out in West Texas.
Yeah. Mhm. In Mexico, yeah.
Are they freestanding on the ground there, or do you
No.
do you find them in excavations?
They were digging holes like you dig for opal in
Right.
Australia. You
Right.
dig a hole, find a seam, and then you start off with that seam. They were doing that for a while, and then it got to like an open pit mining situation, except obviously not near as deep though.
Okay.
And-
I was
and
going to
they-
ask, is flint formed in any similar fashion?
It is
Let's,
chalcedony, chert, flint is all the same thing. Macrocrystal, macrocrystal here. The white in this is chalcedony. And chalcedony can be white, powdery white, brown, dark colored, and anything in between. Some of it, depending on if there was any manganese involved, can be black. True flint is black. So you find a arrowhead that's not black. It's either made out of chalcedony or chert. Chert's more white than chalcedony. Chalcedony can be many colors, like your Ohioan flint and all that stuff they make the real pretty arrowheads out of. The Indians did. That would be chalcedony. Chert's usually only white, unless it picks up another color during formation of some other mineral.
I go up into the mountains in New Mexico a lot, and there's a lot of rocks, but I don't know if there's,
We talked about the grain. You remember the fibrous?
yeah,
Okay, as far as the microcrystals are, okay. So if you can imagine a jar full of BBs, that would be your granular. Now these you have to look at under a microscope. The big quartz crystals, the six-sided, you can see with your naked eye.
yeah.
This would be the granular formation, and that would be the fibrous formation. And they all hook together during their formation inside the pocket to start making those bands.
Bob?
Yes, sir.
When the term crystals growing, what is that process of growing? I think you've explained that, but I just wanted to clarify.
Say that again.
What does it mean when crystals grow?
Oh, they just keep adding. The more silica and everything that comes in, they just keep adding to and adding to and adding to.
Okay.
You can grow crystals in the lab, but you have to keep adding material to continue to grow.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, those kids buy them. We sell them at the Rock Club once in a while. Grow your own crystals. You can get them in any science store or anything like that. That's all you do. You put the water in there, and it's already got the substance it needs. It just needs to solute in the water, to suspend in the water, and then the crystal will start growing. And as it grows, it sucks up all that the material as well as the water. And then once it's done that, the water anticipates you could probably get it to grow more if you just put more water in there, but you'd be out of chemical by then, or not chemical, but to continue the growth. So as long as there's mineral to support the growth, it'll continue to grow.
Do geodes glow
and-
under
and-
ultraviolet
and-
light?
And things that come into also color it orange, like what you find in some of the geodes in South America and cathedrals. That's what you call those real tall that you see. Some of them are orange in color. Well, that's called citrine. and it'll actually grow citrine crystals, and whatever that mineral is that causes it to, is what seeped in there to cause the orange or the yellow, actually.
Do they glow in under ultraviolet light?
No, these don't. They're deep in the earth. Yeah.
And is blue chalcedony natural or dyed?
It can be natural. You can have blue. There are chalcedony arrowheads, and people get that Ohio flint. It's chalcedony. Everybody calls it flint. But again, true flint is black. But they get that up in Ohio and Illinois and all that. And they make arrowheads out of, just like the Indians did. And you can find that multicolored. You can have multicolors just in one arrowhead, one piece of that flint.
I am really curious about this.
Yeah, that may be what you call a biscuit.
Okay.
And it was a bubble that got
Okay.
flattened. Yeah.
Okay. It was found out near Iran, Texas.
Where?
Iran,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
out in West Texas.
Yeah. That could be a chert nodule.
Okay.
Chert inside.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd have to cut it to be sure.
Okay.
You don't know, you don't know till you cut it, whether it's a
Yeah.
geode or not.
I could not tell you what's on the inside of this. I can scratch and knock some of this stuff off here. I can scratch it, knock some of this off. And if I see blue, I know it's got blue agate on the inside, stuck to the husk. But what's deep inside, if there's a crystal pocket, I could not tell you. Nobody can tell you what.
How do you tell if it's dyed or natural?
Here's another one that was cut. And you can slightly see the slight blue around the edges of the whole thing there. You can see that little bit of blue all around. That's agate. And then the white came in, probably chalcedony. How can you tell what, ma'am?
How do you tell if it's natural or dyed?
You can look at the outside. If it's got blue, pink, or whatever, yellow dye on the outside. Otherwise, it'll look like that.
But the dyeing is a natural process, right?
No. That's
Oh, no?
man-made. No, like I said, they put them in barrels full of whatever color dye, pink,
I
blue,
see.
yellow, yeah. And that's how you get dye. And it actually permeates the husk and goes on into the chalcedony because it can leach through the chalcedony. But again, it will not go into the quartz. The quartz is too hard. It'll go into everything else. And you can see on the outside, that's the skin right there. Let me get over here so I can see
Good question, Misha.
that's the skin right there. And you can see it's blue. It's not brown or anything else. So that one's been dyed.
How long do you let it sit?
They let them sit for like 3 to 4 weeks. Doesn't take that long. And that's more what a natural would look like, brown on the outside for a solid. And then that's what it looked like on the inside. And you can see actually where it came in there, can't you? See how that material got in there? Right here. That's where it went in. Started filling up. I don't know if this will work or not. This is an iris. I showed you the pictures of the iris. Let me try the light and see if that'll bring it out. This is a piece I got from Montana Agate and sliced this one up myself. No, that's no help. Remember how prismatic the iris was? It's not going to show up on this. But you saw the pictures of the iris agate. they're found all over the world. Turkey has some excellent examples, and they obviously have more stuff in the soil over there than we do. And look at all the volcanic activity over there too, millions and millions of years ago. And depending on where you find some of these things, they move through the earth, they rotate, turn, and all that stuff. Sometimes get smashed. If they're still not completely solidified yet on the outside, they'll join with another one, and you'll actually have that, two of them together. But this happened before they were solidified. So you've got two different, look how different they are each side. Completely different stuff leached into one side that didn't go in the other side. You see right at that middle part there, some of them tried to get over into the smaller part, but didn't quite fill it up. It had its own source.
What is the most unusual one that you found?
Probably this one here. Yeah.
Barbara wants to look at the iris again.
The picture or the one I have here?
Yours.
I tried to get it to show through. I actually need a light behind it.
The multicolored stone, the one that looked like opals, multicolored. Not
See a
that
little
one.
bit.
That's nice, but the one you showed beginning, that it was multicolored, rainbow-esque.
Oh, that's the iris. That's
Yes,
on
the iris.
yeah.
Let's
I'll
look
go-
at that.
You want me to go back to that? Okay, hold on.
Yes. How do you explain all those colors?
It's just the way the molecules lined up.
Is it all the same mineral?
No, different minerals, but either due to heat or pressure or a combination of all that.
I love that.
Can you see that?
No, I can't see it.
No.
He's got a great, he's got two specimens that are great. I lost him. I'm still not on mute.
You see anything at all on my screen?
No, just your face.
Oh, Chromebook.
So is that your specimen? The iris?
Yes.
Do you have that on display in your home?
Mm-hmm. Sits on a stand.
Walter, are you a geologist or?
No, just a rock hound.
Wait,
But
I see.
I've studied these things for years.
Right.
I've been to many
where did you find that? You have two different iris specimens.
Yes, this one here. Can you see this one?
Well, no, we can't see it, but the memory of it is great.
Hold it up to your face, Walt. To your face.
Well, I had one other question.
Yeah.
When you're showing us the geodes, the rim around the edge all seems to be about the same width. Is that just my imagination, or do they tend to expand inside close to the outside rim?
They're all different. And remember what we said, it all depends on, you see me
That's
now?
just my imagination.
Yeah, I lost the video thing here. I can only see me now.
That's
Uh,
fine.
Right.
Now I'll have something to search for the rest of my life.
No, it all, like it said, when the silica oozes in there, and if there's any aluminum or iron oxide or anything like that, remember the ions, everything works off electricity. It gets pushed off to the
Ah.
side. Yeah,
That's wonderful.
that gets pushed off to the side. Now these coconut geodes, they can have a rather thick underneath the rind or the husk. They can have a pretty thick layer of blue agate.
Walt,
Yeah.
I've heard that Australia was the only place that opals form. Is that true?
No, negative. You've got some, even here in the States, they're very pale, but you have the Ethiopian opals that are just as beautiful. They're not as pretty, of course, as a boulder opal, but the regular opals that you find down in Australia, they're every bit as pretty as that. Boulder opals, you'll probably only find down there.
Mm,
Well,
There
let
you go.
me
thank you.
understand the difference in the color in the rock that forms naturally in the
Mhm.
layers
Mhm.
versus dyeing, man-made dyeing. It's,
Right.
so you do find these geodes with natural color, different brilliant
Yeah.
natural colors.
Yes, but not as permeated as this is. Yeah, not as permeated as that is. When you have the different bands in there, you see how this was natural till they dyed it, but you can see the layers in the bottom. Those layers were different colors, but the red covered all that up. It was soaked, the dye soaked into all that because it is porous.
Hmm.
There were water bands down there where the silica came in, deposited, the water dried or was evaporated because the heat and pressure. More silica came in when the pressure outside became greater than the pressure inside, and more seeped in.
Is
On the
dyeing,
ones I showed that had all the banding on it, like this one, has those bands inside. You can see where it came in right here. So you got that rather thick layer. That was the first thing to come in. And if there was any ionization involved due to the material that came in, remember it got pushed off to the sides, like two magnets pushing apart.
is
Okay,
that
positive.
natural or dyed?
Huh?
The
This
colors?
is natural. It could be dyed, yeah, but no, this is natural. But
Does
you
that
can have
add to the
red, yellow-
value or
you can
detract?
have red, yellow, green bands. Remember, when you dye it, it dyes everything.
Yeah, okay.
You wouldn't actually notice. You'd notice the banding, but you really wouldn't notice the coloration of the bands because the dye took all that over, permeated
Sure.
yeah.
It would seem like that would devalue the geode.
That's
If you
what some
dyed
people
it.
think. But that's what some people think. But then you have others that enjoy that.
Huh.
And that's why they don't cost as much as a regular slice. Yeah, it's about half the price if you're buying slices. Slabs. Some people call them slabs. Some people call them slices. The most common term, I guess, would be slabs. And they'll make a thick one. They'll cut a thick one, and then they'll hollow it out somewhat and make like an ashtray. And then they'll polish it and make like an ashtray, and it'll all be nicely polished.
Right.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Walt, did you have an example of one that was cut that showed the differences on each side, even though it's the same geode. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. No differences. It's actually the same. That's one half. And there's the other half.
Now, is the center of that dyed or natural?
No, no, that's iron oxide.
Okay,
Forms hematite, Jasper, forms that. When it's red like that inside, it's called carnelian. And then you can see the banding at the bottom where initially the water came in, made one layer, the water dissipated and left the silicate gel there to harden. Then another one came in, then another layer. Sometimes the whole geode will be full of layers.
Yeah.
With
Water
maybe
coming in and out.
a crystal cavity at the top. And
Can
I've
you
had
tell-
where you can actually see it move through the soil. You can see the bands here on this one, and the last one I saw got moved through the soil due to upheaval, earthquakes, or whatnot, and it started making bands this way. So you had more bands about 45 degrees to the bands that were already established.
That's amazing.
Can you tell me again what this is called?
That is a thunder egg, and that's almost a
Thunder egg.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's almost a 6 point. Yeah,
Yeah.
5 point rather.
Now,
You can
the
tell-
other half
yeah.
of it is just 4 points.
No,
It's got
Stop.
arrowhead in it. Yeah, somebody
Yeah,
mounted
this
an
has
arrow.
got, both
Yeah.
of them have
Yeah.
of them have, this was made for us and
Right.
gift, but so they both
Yeah.
have little things inside of them, but that
Yeah,
was
that's the
not
beautiful.
deposited there.
That's also, yeah, that's a thunder egg. Looks like one that was cut in half and then they mounted things inside. I have
Yeah.
some on the shelf over here that have, they actually sell, it's from Brazil, but it's not solid. It still has a cavity inside of it, but very small, like druzy quartz, very small quartz crystals inside that line the inside. So it has a thick agate layer in there. But then somebody went and put little miners with hammers and, like they're mining inside. You want
Oh,
to get
how
one?
fun.
You want me to get one of those for you? No, you want me to show you one of those?
Yes.
I'll be right back. It'll take me just a second.
Okay.
Didn't we have one like that one time? Maybe Bad Geode or something, a
Oh,
little
I don't
miner. I've seen them
I don't
somewhere.
know.
I have seen them, a little tiny figure of a miner.
This one was from Dugway Proving Grounds when our youngest son was stationed there near Salt Lake City,
Uh,
for the rest of you guys.
who cut it?
I guess he did when we went up there to visit, and it was our son's sergeant that gave these to us, and they just pick them up on the proving ground out there.
There's one with a eureka moment in it.
Oh, yes,
It's also Brazilian agate.
that's great.
So you can buy these little pewter if you want to dress your hollow agates up. It's got the
I love it.
ore. It's got the ore cart and everything in it.
Yeah, that is so cute.
Yeah. I like that.
And that's pyrite. They put little pieces of pyrite in there to make it look like go fool's gold. Yeah. they
Oh,
put little-
yeah.
So they're digging in a pile of pyrite.
What is fluorite?
What is what?
Fluorite? Fluorite,
Yeah,
F-L-O-U-R-I-T.
it's a fairly soft rock. It can be banded, and fluorite, you wouldn't believe the many colors it comes in.
But it's softer than quartz.
Softer than quartz. Oh, yes.
Is it softer than chalcedony?
Oh, yes. Matter of fact, I got one of my books here is mineral inclusions found in geodes, and you asked about fluorite.
Fluorite. Do you find fluorite in geodes?
Sometimes. That's not listed in here. But fluorite's coming. You might find 3 or 4 different colors in fluorite, be banded. Most common is purple, but you can find orange, honey fluorite, be honey colored.
Green.
Green, yes, ma'am. Come many different. It all depends on what silica seeped in there. It also has a silica compound. And whatever mineral. If we want to know what some of the green is, Argonite, white, gray, pale green to colorless.
It's my understanding it's too soft to turn into jewelry.
No, you can make jewelry out of fluorite.
You
You
can.
just have to be careful how you tumble it and polish it. If you're polishing it like in a cabochon concept, to make a bow tie or make a necklace that you're going to put mount in silver, you want to be sure and stay away from the 80-100 grit, and just get right on the 220 to shape it like you want. Otherwise, you can grind it up pretty quick. But yes, they do make jewelry out of fluorite. A lot of times it'll look, you'll find fluorite, and it looks like amethyst, nice purple amethyst.
Pretty.
But one of the ladies at the Rock Club, Linda Walker, you may know Linda Walker. She has very, very beautiful fluorite necklace.
Actually, Linda is here if she.
Yeah, you'll have to
she's
show
still
us,
here.
Linda.
Hello. Well, no, actually what I wanted to show you was a geode that Walt cracked for me about 5 years ago. And this is just to show that if you cut it just right, you can get something really interesting out of it. Oops.
I don't see
Have it
the video.
upside down. They're happy faces.
Oh, look at that.
I don't see it.
So if he had cut it any other way, it would not have come out like that. And I say cut, he cracked it open.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember that one? Yeah. I didn't know you there, Linda. Thanks for showing up.
Oh yeah, I've been here.
So after you crack those, then do you polish them?
You can, yes, absolutely. If you don't have any crystals hanging out, you can flat lap it on a flat lap machine, either vibrating or rotating with different grinding compounds, finer and finer and finer. You certainly can. If you have any, I have one that kind of like this, but it has a crystal about 2 inches long sticking out of it that grew in. Had I have cut that instead of cracking it, I'd have cut right through the crystal.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and ruined it. So you got the crystal sticking out. So you have to be careful. And when you're going around the edge, when you got something sticking out like that, like this, I'd have to be real careful because you can see right there.
Yeah.
You've got blades sticking out there. So I'd have to be real careful right around this part of it.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, you can polish the edges. And if it's got any blue agate in there, boy, does it really take a shine, and it's really nice.
Yeah.
This one here would be okay. Nothing to interfere. So you can put this one on a flat lap and just go to town with it.
Huh. That's something.
And
did
all
you
these were done. You can see how shiny they are all the way around.
Yes.
These were done on a flat lap.
Yeah.
Did you say your next rock show is going to be in April?
Yes, ma'am. Well, that's what we're shooting for. I don't know with the uptick in COVID if they're going to have it or not. We should know about 3 weeks maybe. hopefully by then, if we're going to be able to have it or not, because they may shut us all down again. Because you got a lot of states going back on the lockdown, stuff like that.
Will it be in Austin?
Oh, yes, yes. Mhm. And there'll be dealers there. You can buy anything. If you're into beading, you want to buy rough stones, slabs to polish your own, cut your own and freeform and make cabs out of and make your own jewelry. All that stuff is available. There'll be vendors there for that. We have a silent auction for things like this and crack geodes for you. You want to buy a geode, we'll crack it for you. And you'll be the first person to ever see what was in there.
Our show is going to be in Abilene.
Oh,
And it's going to be out at the fairgrounds this year instead of the convention center.
in the
Or the
spring.
civic center. Yes, sir. Yeah, Herb.
Is turquoise formed in similar way? Do you know, Walt?
It's in seams. It's a flow, but it's a very soft, like opal, silica flow, and turquoise all flows the same thing from a silica compound.
Is it becoming more and more
But
rare?
it doesn't come in geo. It's stuck in the matrix of the rock. If there's fissures, little lumps, little cavities in the rock, that's where it'll form. But it flows like to the outside. You can cut the rock and there'll be some inside, but it'll like float around the rock. And if there's any fissures or anything like that, that's why you see so much turquoise with another type of rock embedded in it. It can be black and everything. There's like 7 different types of turquoise.
I see.
And you can find them all here in the Southwest.
Well, nature left us a lot of jewels out there to
It
find.
sure has. Yeah.
And the earth.
Finding new ones every day and new geode beds. The more they dig, like I said, Kentucky, about 10 years ago, they started finding agates in Kentucky. You never heard of an agate from Kentucky before. Up in the Michigan, northern area up there, the Keokuk formation up there. They've been pulling geodes out of there now for about 20 years. And not before. When the glaciers come down, they bring a lot and they polish these things. If they're solid, it actually polishes this thing and actually gets rid of the husk. Tumble, tumble, tumble. Remember, as the ice is receding now, this has happened 14 times in our geological past. As the ice recedes right now, they're finding ancient caribou trails with stone tools where the Indians butchered them and all that stuff. That's 14, 20, 50,000 years ago. And it's on about that cycle, about every 50,000 years. And they say this cycle here is the 14th time this has happened. And so when the ice comes down, it brings all that stuff from the north and it actually tumbles it in the ice and everything, digs it up because it pushes everything, hills and all that stuff, pushes over hills and all that. And the action actually tumbles this stuff. So you can, Lake Michigan, all the lakes up there and on land in Michigan, you can find these agates. And the husk and everything's already gone, and they're pretty much already polished because of the tumbling action of being brought down by the glaciers.
Right.
So you find them all over. So you find a Lake Superior agate. At one time, that was a geode. And you can look that up on Facebook, Agate Lovers on Facebook, Agate Lovers Worldwide, and you can see you can see all this stuff, things that I've showed you and other things on Facebook if you're into that. And just go to one of the groups, it's agatelovers.com. There's many lapidary sites on there that you can go to. Minerals, not necessarily agates, but they also have mineral samples, fossils.
And Walt, we have our own page on Facebook also.
Yes, we do. We have our own page that was set up.
What's it called? What's the name of it? Your page?
Oh, it's the Central Texas Gem and Mineral Society. Central Texas Gem and Mineral Society. That's .com too, I believe, not .net.
Excellent. Does anybody else have any questions or anything that you'd like to say before we end our meeting?
Thank you, Walt.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, Walt, for a
Enjoyed it.
marvelous
Very,
presentation.
Very interesting.
I enjoyed putting this together, and I hope you enjoyed viewing the rocks and the geodes.
Loved it. Thank you very much.
Yes,
Hope all
thank
of
you very
you
much.
stay safe with this virus. And
All right.
don't forget to wash your face and don't touch your hands.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Well, remember
like to-
everyone
We'd like
that
to see another one, gems and minerals or something like that. Let Linda or Miss Price know.
Will
They
do.
want Minerals or whatever subject of that nature that you'd like.
Yeah.
remember that
great.
this is being recorded. So if anybody wants to look at it at a later date, just let us know and we can send you the link. Thank you everyone for joining us. It was a great turnout, an amazing turnout.
Yeah,
And Walt, it was wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
doing this.
Linda, thank you.